This episode is proudly supported by Westholme Australian Wagyu. Here's Stephen Sinclair from Jackson's on George.
In general, Westholme, I use several items on the menu from them. I always look to source products for their flavour. And with Westholme, I think they deliver that 100%. Australian Wagyu, in particular, Westholme is world class. Westholme is recognised for their quality all over the world. And then that's why, and when I tried it, and I absolutely love the flavour. This is, why I decided to put them on the menu.
Westholme believe that when nature leads, flavour follows. Learn more at westholme.com.
By nature, chefs and anyone in hospitality, we want everything done yesterday. Our day-to-day life is always just pushing forward and getting things done as quickly as possible. And when you're put into a position where you have to be patient, it is very, very difficult, but good things do come to those who wait.
Welcome to Dirty Linen, and an extra special welcome because this is the podcast. I can't believe it, but it is our 700th episode. That is a lot of conversations. I have to say, what a journey, what a ride. We started in the depths of the pandemic, and yeah, it definitely feels like that was a long time ago, and I suppose 700 episodes is a pretty long time. To celebrate and I suppose launch into the next 700 episodes, I wanted to do something really special, and that is what I hope today's conversation will be. Not only a great episode in and of itself, but the beginning of a little series on Dirty Linen that follows the journey to opening Barragunda. I can get excited about restaurant openings of any sort, but I would have to say the opening of Barragunda will be so exciting. I think it's going to be so different. It has been a long time in the making, and I'm a big fan of Chef Simone Watt, who has been an enormous part of bringing this project into being. Simone is a return guest on Dirty Linen, and we'll be hearing from her every few weeks as Barragunda gets closer to opening. I really look forward to following that journey along with her. Simone, welcome back to Dirty Linen.
Hi, Dani. Thanks so much for having me. That was a very lovely intro. I feel very privileged to be celebrating your 700th episode. I know, listening through COVID, your stories and chats got me through some hard times, and I'm just, so grateful for your continuing support with what seems like a lifetime of waiting for Barragunda to finally be here.
Well, I couldn't think of anyone better to share this episode with, so thank you. Tell us about Barragunda to date. Give us a bit of a timeline.
Oh, gosh. So originally, 4.5 years ago, I sat down with Hayley Morris, who's custodian of the property, and floated the idea of sharing the place with the world via a 40-seat restaurant. And I guess that was the initial thought. And from then, thanks to a lot of delays with council and COVID, it really developed into a much larger project that now includes a farming collective where we lease land to young farmers so that they can run their own businesses on site. There's now a native nursery, so we do a lot of revegetation work on site as well. All of the landscaping from the restaurant will be done from both seed or cuttings from the property itself, which is really exciting. So we're at a stage now where everything has finally been approved. The restaurant is actually pretty much built, so we were kind of extending on an existing building. So we've got a beautiful greenhouse that now looks out over the market garden space and is very close to my greenhouses and the nursery, so everyone can sort of access and see where their food is coming from. But it's always been this kind of a concept of sharing a place and making people feel proud of the peninsula and proud of Cape Schanck particularly. Like, I feel like the Mornington Peninsula is so transitory that often people are sort of just coming and going and they've lost that real connection to land. So I want people to be able to come and dine in the restaurant, but then also, buy their veggies and take them home, buy their meat boxes and take them home and feel nourished and really feel a part of the property.
Incredible. So tell us a bit more about the land. So Cape Schanck is on the Mornington Peninsula. It's perhaps an hour and a half southeast of Melbourne. This is a large property, 444 hectares. So it's a grazing property. You're just using a little bit of it for the market garden and the restaurant. But tell us about the land, the outlook. Just sort of situate us a little bit.
Yeah, so we're wedged in between the two national parks, so Greens Bush and Fingal. Like if anyone knows the lighthouse, we sort of are in between that area and Gunnamatta. So we do have some really important native vegetation around us. That there's very little left on the peninsula, so we're very lucky to be surrounded by so much. But our revegetation projects are giving back to that each year. We average about 1,500 trees a year that go in various places to build on those pockets. So although a large portion of the landscape is grazing, it's actually becoming less and less as we're putting more and more trees in. Once upon a time, the vast majority of the property was actually grazing, and the Morris family have committed to just diversifying it in such an unbelievable way. Their vision for this property is really so admirable, and I'm just so proud to be a part of it. So as well as the grazing, there's about 800 mature orchard trees. So we have essentially fruit for all seasons, and they put those in about 12 years ago. So I'm so fortunate as a chef now to have access to the fruit every season. We've got grapefruits and lemons at the moment. There's already little green figs on all of the trees. The little baby quinces are starting to grow. The cherries are all flowering. The apricots and the peaches are just starting to bud. So yeah, it's as far as not just a chef, but I guess for our bar team as well, the potential to make everything from scratch and experiment with all sorts of things is unbelievable. And then there's 2 acres of market garden as well that Morning Penny runs. So he's Carl's our resident veggie farmer who leases space off us, and our relationship's really close. So he used to be a chef as well, so he understands that connection between the kitchen and the garden. And I guess with my experience with farming, I understand what goes into successional sowing and the length of time that things need. And so at the moment, we're planting our autumn crops at the moment, and summers are all pretty much in the ground and ready to go. So we're getting all ramped up with menus for opening, which is very exciting.
It's amazing to hear you talk about opening with certainty and a timeline, because we've had a lot of conversations over the past few years, and there certainly have been some frustrations and some, as you mentioned, some delays. But Simone, why have you stuck with this project? Like, why? What is it about this type of restaurant that appeals to you? I
think, look. When I did an internship with Transition Farm, it was probably about 10 years ago now, it was the first time that I'd really had my hands in the soil. And I knew after moving back from Far North Queensland that I wanted to work on a farm, and that I wanted to try and run a restaurant that was connected to a farm. And when I got here and saw the scope of what was already in place, it was just a dream come true, and I knew that I would never have an opportunity like this. But because we live on site as well, as we've sort of stayed here for the last few years, I fall more and more in love with this coastal terroir and the beautiful little seasonal nuances that happen in the native vegetation, and it's never felt more like home as well. And I think being able to work somewhere that you're so connected to and have the ability to share it with other people, it's just such a beautiful thing.
I mean, anywhere we are in Australia, we're on, the land of the traditional owners. But I think when we're in regional Australia, where there's less construction, less built environment, it is, perhaps easier to connect with that history, and I guess that present day connection as well. I mean, how do you relate to Barragunda as Boonwurrung country?
I think it's giving back, and it's giving back to biodiversity and stopping and listening and not being so rushed and not trying to sort of do everything in a industrial agricultural sense all the time, and that might be integrating hedgerows into the orchards. That might be, my partner Sam's always against us mowing because, the native grasses, we've got kangaroo grass and things like that on site. It's such an agricultural thing to be like, all of the grass has to be mowed perfectly and everything has to look beautiful. But sometimes letting that seed come back and the kangaroos and stuff coming in and they're, pooping in the orchard, they're our native fertilizers. They're our only thing that's putting back nitrogen into the soil without it being synthetic. So I think it's just, it's most of the time just stepping back and letting it be, because for so very, very long we've been trying to manage it rather than, letting it do its own thing.
And, you mentioned that time at Transition Farm, which was such a turning point for you. What is it about being a chef surrounded by the food that you're serving that, makes you feel good? Like, why is that the way that you want to work as a chef?
It gives everything purpose, and you have, I feel like we kind of have a duty now as chefs to be advocating environmentalism, and that's understanding that the better your soil health is, the higher your bricks or your sugar levels are in your vegetables, so that they taste better, and we have this duty that people should feel good and nourished and healthy when they leave a restaurant. I think so often going and dining in a restaurant is considered, there's a certain level of gluttony where it's like spoil yourself and everything's rich and delicious and beautiful, but I think you should be able to leave a restaurant and go, wow, I feel great. Everything there was organic. We're getting so used to everything being processed and traveling a million miles, so all of its nutrients are lost. And I feel so privileged when I pick vegetables in the morning and can cook them and give them to someone and share how beautiful that can be.
It's not always easy to grow food, and I guess if you are a chef ordering off a list and one particular farmer loses their broccoli crop to weather or pests, you don't even need to know about that because the broccoli will just come from somewhere else. But that's not the same with the type of restaurant you're building. Like, how do you anticipate coping with some of the vagaries of farming?
Look, I think any farm-to-table restaurant or situation, being adaptable is the number one key in it, because Mother Nature is not predictable. So how can your menu possibly be? But, when you have a diverse amount of crops as well, when you're not a market garden that's just sowing brassicas, that's just sowing lettuces or something like that. When you have these extreme weather events, or if you have these pest infestations, then you've generally got something to fall back on. So it's just a matter of, okay, we don't have broccolis today, but the cauliflowers are amazing, and you've got to have that mindset that can switch fairly easily with that. But I don't really like routine too much either. So I thrive on that sort of like, okay, what are we doing today? It's completely different to yesterday.
So tell us about the restaurant experience. What are you hoping to create?
So the restaurant itself is quite small. It's only 40 seats, and that was really important to me as far as the storytelling capabilities go. I think, when you itch over getting into bigger restaurants, it gets quite hard when you're turning tables and you're quite busy for the front of house, and for us to really be able to engage and tell the stories both of the land and put faces to farmers. That's always, a really important thing for me. And down here we just have so many incredible producers. Obviously we'll be using as much as we can from the farm, but I've always believed in not trying to be a jack of all trades. So, I'm not going to be getting goats and milking them because I've got Main Ridge Dairy down the road and they just, do it so well. So, being able to highlight the hard work of, people that I would now consider friends and family, Yoki Doki Farms, eggs around the corner as well, that just, do things so very beautifully. And so the menu will be a set menu. I think that's, look, when you're working with produce and trying to plan ahead long term with, using whole beast butchery that's from the farm and communicating with your farmer, it's very difficult to not have a set menu. But I really hope that the diners have a level of trust, in myself and our team that whatever is on the menu that day is the most beautiful representation of whatever is outside at that point in time. And, of course, we'll cater for dietary requirements. And I don't know why I just said that. I'm encouraging it now. But, it will be highly seasonal, always use some of our lamb or beef, always be utilising the orchard fruit as well, like I said before, both on the menu and in the bar. So for me, like the cocktail offering will be really utilising our waste from the kitchen, or, making different kombuchas and ferments and things from the orchard. Most of the stuff will be shared, but there will be little individual plates as well of things. But again, like I don't really like getting into that routine of going, okay, we're going to have, 4 snacks and this entree. Some entrees might be delicious shared, some might be good on their own. So I think we'll change it up depending on, how things are looking that day.
And how much is it going to be?
We're sitting at about the 140 mark per head. So for me, it was kind of important to obviously still be able to cover our costs, but I didn't want to itch up too high, because, we've got a small team, and I think, my style of food is fairly relaxed. It's not, fine dining. It's not really overworked. The vegetables and fruit, I think, speak for themselves a lot of the time, but I really wanted people to be able to return and sort of, come regularly and feel connected. I didn't sort of only want the hyper wealthy to be able to come, because that takes away from the whole concept of the experience and the farm itself.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I'd say my experience of your food is that you just know flavour, and you're so good at layering it just with, I don't know, a little bit of seasoning, a little bit of acid, something fermented. And my mouth is watering thinking about your food. And I love also the way that you put colour together. I think, maybe that's a function of cooking so seasonally, but I feel like there's a lot of celebration in your food.
Oh, thank you. I think, I always say the vegetables do the hard work. I just put them on a plate. But I think there is a certain truth to that. And when everything is fresh and you're walking out in the morning to, whether it's do your garnish harvests or, finishing touches of minor crudité and things like that, seasonally, the colours do all go together. When you put them all on a plate, it's like they have this little happy marriage. They all grew together. They all know one another, and it just it just works.
Oh, I love it. So I suppose one of the things that you still need to do is finish putting the team together. I'd love you to talk about your the visiting day that you had.
Yeah, it was so lovely. It was kind of a bit of a concept that we had to have an open day at Barragunda for hospitality staff, because so many people haven't been, and, you can see images of the farm, but until you really visit and do a full walk around, you don't truly understand the scope of what's possible here. And I wanted to be able to inspire people, but then also give them, a little bit of time if they are considering coming down here to work to find accommodation and things like that. Because, the Mornington Peninsula, much like Melbourne, the housing crisis here is no different. So it's tricky for young chefs to find rentals and things. So I kind of just wanted to float the idea to people so that they've got summer to potentially think of, finishing up at other roles as well. So it wasn't a quick turnaround for that side of things. But we had some amazing humans come that were all very aligned with what we're doing. So hopefully we've ticked a couple of boxes already, but not quite. But the team itself is so I'm looking for a really strong sous chef that's really kind of dedicated to whole beast butchery and charcuterie and ferments that can help with our lamb and beef butchery. And then we're also looking for a baker / pastry chef. So with the collective offering, we will do sort of bread and things alongside our vegetable boxes and meat. So I was kind of after looking for someone that had experience and dedication to baking, but can also sort of assist with the plated desserts and doing, puff pastries and stuff like that I really enjoy doing, but will have my head in a lot of different places. So it'll be nice to have a little backup person, and also probably a chef de partie or, a junior that's eager and willing to learn. But it will just be the four of us in the kitchen, and then we have a really beautiful casual team that we pull on for all of our events down the other end of the farm in the big heritage barn where we host weddings and things. So there is kind of little diverse pockets of offerings in on a hospitality level as well.
I'm really interested in the chef de partie role, like this sort of young, eager person who perhaps doesn't know but would love to learn. Like, what sort of how would you think that person would look back on a job at Barragunda?
Hopefully nicely. But I think, you have a chance to learn a lot more than simply cooking, I guess. We're only opening 4 days, so we're going to open from Friday through to Monday, Thursdays being our sort of big prep day. But Thursdays will also be a big harvest day, so we'll do all of our own harvesting from the orchard itself. But all of sort of like the medicinal herb garden and things like that, where we're doing a lot of infusions and honeys and ferments and stuff, we'll be doing looking after that. And I also run a couple of greenhouses that always have sort of the unique and interesting bits and pieces in there. So it'll be a very hands-on role outside for all of the chefs. And I don't know, I think for me and maybe young chefs that have been in the city or any chefs that have worked in the city for a long time, the ability to include outside work in your role is just so good for your mental health. Our kitchen still looks out, we can still see outside, but I think of the days and how many kitchens I've worked in where I was literally in a basement and didn't see the light of day for 15 hours, what that does to your soul. So, the ability to really connect with outside, I think will be really nice for not just young chefs, but old chefs like me too.
It just sounds absolutely idyllic. Obviously, a lot of hard work. It's not simply staring out at a beautiful garden. So, Simone, you're how many weeks from opening and what are the jobs that are on your list?
Oh, gosh, it'll be another podcast in itself, I think, just for the job list. But look, we're aiming for the start of February. The restaurant itself is pretty much completely built. It was really lovely. Daryl, who is our old farm manager, used to be a builder, and he took on the build as kind of his last job before he retires. So it was just a really lovely way to bring, the farm family together to finish it off. But there's nothing like retirement to encourage people to get something done really quickly. So every time I go in there, I'm like, oh, this is done. Oh, that's done. So it really has moved along quite quickly with the build itself. And then we've brought on lovely Marie, who people might know from 10 Minutes by Tractor as our restaurant manager. And she is just the most beautiful human and exactly what I wanted in demeanour and both experience for a restaurant manager. So her and I are working quite closely together for all of the fun procurement stuff. So I think we've checked off most of our crockery. So we're getting a lot of beautiful handmade crockery from a couple of local producers and a few from in the city as well, all sort of tying in very much to our local terroir. We're playing around with some native seeds and limestone and some very quirky stuff that I'm excited to share with people. And we've chosen all of our furniture, which is very exciting. And so now we're sort of going into that fun, not so fun stage of food class applications and all of that jazz, which is when you think that there's no more hurdles in the road, there is still very frustrating hurdles and nonsense bureaucratic legislation. But that is kind of, the processes that I'm going through at the moment of organising the kitchen stock and what it will look like to, what is essentially should be the simplest form of restaurant in a farm-to-table style. Everything from scratch restaurant actually proves quite difficult in having all of the record-keeping side of things.
Oh, that's so interesting. So even though there's this bucolic vision, you get caught up in paperwork that doesn't really seem fit for purpose. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think, it's just the simplest of tasks. Things like fermentation's a perfect example. When you have to document pH levels of, what is putting 2% salt into an organic cabbage is just crazy to me when I think about the fact that you can walk into most shops and, buy a bag of potatoes or strawberries that's packed full of glyphosate, or, you can fly a plane over and spread chemicals over a field. But the legislation around fermentation and putting salt in something just to preserve it seems to be like you're trying to do something wrong. And I don't know, the whole auditing system is just set up in this strange way that it's like assuming that everyone is untrustworthy all the time. And, chefs have to go through and do their food handlers course. And we're all here trying to do the right thing and not waste food and elevate its flavors. And there's still always red tape trying to make it harder than it needs to be.
That's really interesting. And I mean, Simone, this is a massive project and you're leading it. How do you feel? Like, do you sometimes look over your shoulder and wish there was someone to ask what to do next? Or do you feel like you've got this all in hand?
Look, I have a lot of beautiful mentors and people to sort of speak to. And I feel like the community down here has really helped me through the last 4 years. They've all been so very supportive. We had a little farm gathering the other day with all of the farmers from the peninsula, and it was just so nice to have that sort of connection. And I feel like their excitement for Barragunda and, people like yourself supporting me for the last 4 years as well, feel that excitement continues to drive me. And yeah, there are some mornings when I wake up and go, shit, this is actually happening. I hope I can still remember how to cook. No, I think it's all going to come together. And, I think the team will naturally, hopefully, fall together, and it won't be too long until it becomes a reality.
And Simone, let's finish off with any advice that you've got, at this point in the journey. If someone's listening to this and they're thinking, oh, this sounds a bit like my dream as well, or, perhaps it's a very different restaurant that they're planning to open, what advice have you gleaned from your journey this far?
Oh, patience. Definitely patience. I think, I think I might have said to you before, possibly, that by nature, chefs and anyone in hospitality, we want everything done yesterday. Our day-to-day life is always just pushing forward and getting things done as quickly as possible. And when you're put into a position where you have to be patient, it is very, very difficult. But good things do come to those who wait. And so just be patient.
Well, Barragunda will come to me who waits in a few months. But in the meantime, we will catch up with you from time to time and see where you are on the journey. Simone, thank you for being part of this series. And thanks for not, just being dogged and not giving up with the project. It just sounds super exciting, and it's going to be a great showcase, I think, for other chefs and restaurateurs and other hospitality professionals and farmers, I reckon, just to think about different ways that things could be done and different ways that we can connect through the joy of food. So all power to you.
Thanks so much, Dani. Thanks for your support, both for me and our whole industry through the last few years.
That's my pleasure. Thank you.
Bye.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.